Right, hello and welcome to Rejuvenated Women, Impeccable Health for High-Performing Women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson-Ridley, and today is episode 48. I'm really excited to be joined today by a fellow health coach and holistic health practitioner, Heidi Frost. And Heidi is an occupational therapy practitioner, certified health coach, and registered yoga instructor with over 19 years of experience in the holistic health and wellness space. She specializes in helping women over the age of 35 manage high stress and low energy so that they can be physically, mentally, and emotionally present in every aspect of life. And she's the owner of Revolution Health, which has been serving women online in the virtual space for the past year. So Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And as our listeners can probably tell, you and I function in a very similar space, serving a similar woman who's, stressed out and doesn't have any energy and all those things. So I'd love to just start off with, hearing a little bit about how you got into doing the work that you do, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So in the early on in my career, as an occupational therapist, I worked in the traditional medical model, mostly in hospitals and clinics and, under the regulations of all of the powers that be in the healthcare industry. And then, working full time, managing a household and a family. And, in my sort of mid 20s, I was struggling with some of my own health issues as far as around digestive health and energy management and the impacts of stress on my mind and body. And that led me to my own health journey where I really started to study and research, and I became a certified health coach and registered yoga instructor, and really worked deeply with my mind and body to help manage my own health and keep my own health at its optimal function. And I wanted to share that with other women and really help to support them as well. So I've been doing that for the past 10 years on site in different gyms and healthcare facilities. And then, as you said, the past year I pretty much took everything online.
Awesome. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to me because I talked to a lot of other women who we've ended up in this role as health coach and leader. And my journey is similar. I had health challenges and ended up becoming a certified women's health coach. And here we are.
Yeah.
And there's so many different facets to that healing process. And I know we were talking a little bit, earlier before we started here, kind of around the side that I don't think gets talked about enough, because typically when women come to see one of us, it's, there's physical issues going on, right? And so there's this physical stuff that has their focus, but what we tend to ignore is all the emotional stuff that
For
contributed to
sure.
that. And so I'll kind of let you, we'll ebb and flow a little bit, but just talking around
Yeah.
the side of healing.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny, because the yoga instructor in me, I think, always turns to that mind body connection piece when I'm working with my clients. Because when most women first come to me and I ask, we get in conversation about what's going on with them, the first thing that they tell me is all of the physical symptoms, right? And that is always what's highlighted, in everybody when they're describing what it is that they're suffering with or what their challenges are. And it's either fatigue or they want weight loss or they're struggling with joint pain. And, once we start to really dig a little deeper, there's always an underlying emotional component there as well that we uncover. So even though we start, down the physical path when we're working towards a health goal, I think we always tend to accomplish something involving the emotional health as well.
Absolutely. And what I find really interesting about that is, a lot, and I don't know if you experience this too, but a lot of the women I work with are like, the women they've tried everything, or they're also
Totally.
a yoga instructor, and like, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I've done all the things and I'm stuck.
Yes.
And it's like 99.9% of the time, it's not because there's something wrong with you or wrong with us or like you're unique somehow. It's that there's some emotional stuff that you just haven't dealt with. I know
Yeah.
I was sharing with you before we started. Part of my process is we do a full moon detox that goes after parasites and all this stuff. And so I had this client,
Mm-hmm.
she came in yesterday and she did this over the weekend. and she got like 9. I mean, she was obsessed with her poo, right? So she
Yeah.
tracked it and measured it all, but
Well, who wouldn't be? Yeah.
I know, right? I'm like, this is so cool. But 9 feet of, like, it's called biofilm, so it's stuff that's just trapped
Yeah,
in your gut. But what she found so interesting about it was, she was triggered by all these things that she's never really talked about, and traumas that she's had, growing up in an
hmm
Alaska Native village, and, stuff that she just kind of glossed over because that was how she dealt with it. And so, that was the kind, because I know you do a lot with detox too. So I'd love
yep,
to just dive into, okay, well, like, where's this emotional connection and the, I've talked about the gut brain connection and all that, but
totally.
let's have that
Yep.
conversation because
Yeah,
it's
I love this. I love that topic. So it's so interesting, like when you describe like eliminating waste from the body and really, in a physical way, yes, it's so important for, of course, all the health reasons behind it with leaky gut and all the other things that can contribute to. But I think the emotional side of it, when you're letting go and eliminating all of these toxins that your body's been carrying, for it could be, and 10, 20, 30 years worth
yeah,
of toxic waste, toxic, high toxic load in the body that's been contributing to the emotional channels and blocking, not only contributing to the gut brain connection and causing things like brain fog and all of this emotional exhaustion, but also blocking the energy channels in the body and interfering with the flow of energy through the body. So I think releasing in every way the toxins physically really triggers what's been buried emotionally and what hasn't had the opportunity to flow freely through the mind and body, because it's been so blocked by all of these high levels of toxins and this disruption in the body system and the mind body connection. So I think it's very common to see those triggers when you're releasing and eliminating toxins, especially if you're combining it with some sort of mind body practice at the same time.
yeah. And so for you with your clients, like, what are some of those mind body practices that you recommend? I mean, obviously you're a yoga
Yeah.
instructor, but
Yep. So I love to, with my clients, we really work closely to create a customized stress protocol that is relevant and going to be, really effective for them. So some of the methods that we incorporate are meditation, which I really love, especially during a detox, right? Because this is the time for your body to rest, restore, repair. So it's not just a physical practice. It really needs to be combined with these mind body practices. So I think, meditation is a really powerful one. I also love breath work and deep breathing. And, I really am a big believer in how that can help to manage stress and also release emotional energy and help to balance emotional energy. Also, journaling is another tool that we use very often um, within the program and with my clients to help support them through this process, because it is a cleanse or a detox is very holistic, so
Mhm.
it's sometimes you see, these like juice cleanses or detox in a box, and it's like,
Like,
this is going to solve it all. But in reality, if we're looking at people in a holistic way, which we're holistic beings, that just doing one thing like that, like a cleanse kit or a detox in a box, is not going to get to the root of the problem. It's not going to really get to balancing the physical and emotional energy and really reaching that goal. So I think having those two practices combined are really powerful.
yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's almost like, I know we both have a background in some Western medicine,
Mm-hmm.
approaches as well, me in chiropractic and you with occupational therapy. And even in the health and wellness space, it's so easy to still try to use it as a band-aid and not,
Totally.
not like really, it's all about the next pill or the next bad diet or
Yeah.
this
And
workout. Yeah, go for it.
yeah. So no, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of my mission and my goal, my big goal with all of my clients, is really to fix the root of the problem, right? And get to the root cause of the problem, of what is triggering, the fatigue, or what is not allowing the body to release fat, what is causing the fat storage. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, like we'll see people trying really hard, eating really clean, working out all the time, really putting in the effort, but still your body is storing fat for a reason. Because again, we need to address these issues in a holistic way and get to the root cause of the problem, not just try the next fad diet and hope that it works,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
that's a big part of my philosophy.
Yeah. I love it. And, for those listening to this, like, I think sometimes the thought of going on the emotional journey that's associated with healing can maybe be overwhelming, or, you know,
Mm.
maybe we don't think it applies to us. I'm trying to figure out what my question is here, or my thought, but, just kind of I guess, what suggestions would you have or recommendations to like help create the safe space to go on this journey? Because I think
Yeah,
it's about, creating that awareness of yourself, and that peace and that space where you can like let it all out and
to
cry.
totally unleash it. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
totally, it's sometimes hard to cultivate the right approach to that, because I think everybody's so different. So, when you're going into like a detox process and you really want to also work through an emotional cleanse and emotional detox,
Yeah.
that, it is the very first thing is to be aware of what, type of state you're in energetically. So, emotionally to begin with, and sort of establish that baseline. And then going forward, I think using those tools that we talked about and sort of letting go of any inhibitions or restrictions and just letting what surfaces flow. And this can be really effective when you're combining a meditation practice with a journaling practice. So I love the idea of doing like it doesn't have to be really long or intense, or, it can be a simple 5 to 10 minute guided meditation, and then combined with journaling right after, and almost journaling with not thinking, just free writing, just free flowing what is coming up during that meditation practice. And it's almost better to, just let the pen to paper. I'm a big believer in when you're journaling, especially, in this type of practice, because there's something about that connection with what's coming up for you and your body and what's getting down on the paper. So old school, just free flow, even if it doesn't make sense what comes out, even if it doesn't, you don't understand it in that moment, just jotting down words, phrases, sentences, whatever's coming up for you, and then letting that sort of sit and process. And then another really powerful tool is to go back and revisit that, either the next day or several hours later, and see what you can pull out from the words that you put down on that page, and what life lessons are hidden in there, what sort of healing processes occurred for you, or what, challenges do you want to maybe work a little deeper in, dig a little deeper into, and work a little bit more on in an emotional way. So I just love the idea of allowing the mind and body to naturally flow and guide you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you hit on, I'm sure you find this too, because I do all the time, but I feel the more I work with women, the more I feel like a lot of our stuff is self-perpetuated, because we hold ourselves to
Oh,
standards and this perfectionism and this, well, I should be doing this and this and this,
mm,
should do it that way. And so a lot of what we're talking about and what you just shared is like, let all that go and
totally. Yeah.
just see what's there. And, we have to be
Mm-hmm.
willing to let go of that perfectionistic type A.
Yes, and no judgment, I think, is
Yeah.
a really big thing in an exercise like that, because even within yourself, I think we're our own, as, you know, high performing women, we can be our own worst critics.
Yeah.
So sort of letting go of that judgment and detaching from the outcome of what is, what's happening in that journaling process and in that sort of that healing process, and just allowing it to be, and letting it, like you said, letting it all sort of just unpack naturally.
Yeah. And I think this is relevant too for, I've worked with several women over the last couple of months that if they don't have results in like a week, they're just done.
Mm,
And,
Yeah.
it's like we have to work through that. Like you have to let go of, any, like you said,
So
attachment to
true.
a thing or a result, and really just trust the process and trust that your
Yep.
body's gonna, like, do the things that
Yeah.
you do and let go of what it needs to let go of. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can totally agree, that I've worked with a lot of women too that, and so we talk a lot about how we measure success and, that letting go of that expectation of perfection and being able to extract small measures of success along the way during the process. Because, even if you're learning and growing 10%, 25% each week as you're working with a coach or a practitioner, then, the results and the outcome that you're going to see 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks from now is going to be transformational, but there's so much to be learned and so much to grow during the process. And I think, just releasing that attachment to the results and, the expectations allows your body to step into that. And that's when you can really, when you eliminate the stress around it, when you
Hmm.
can also see the progress.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't really see it until you look back. But,
So,
you know, yeah, it
yeah.
it it can be there. Like I'm just thinking through this conversation, kind of the most impactful thing that I had happen in my healing journey was when I tore my wrist in like 6 places as a
Oh,
chiropractor. And so
oh.
I went through a divorce, had that happen. I mean, it was already there, but it got really bad just in the emotional side
Mm-hmm.
of all of that. And I literally hit a point where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't play my violin, I couldn't run, I couldn't do any of my stress relieving things. And I could literally just
Right.
sit and like think.
Yeah.
I couldn't type, I couldn't write. It was my right hand.
Right.
And
Right.
but in that place, I was able to, just be and like stop
Mm-hmm.
putting all this pressure on myself and just take the time to process
Yeah.
emotions and cry when I needed to, and just
Mm-hmm.
think. And I didn't run away from that. And I think,
Right.
so often we
Yeah.
think that this emotional thing is messy and is like we don't want to, well, I don't want to deal with that right now, or
Right.
I don't have time for this right now.
Right.
Whatever it is. And so, I just encourage, especially if you're going through some sort of detoxing process and some of this is coming up, like we have to be willing to make the time for it. And that's where, yeah, I get so frustrated with like New Year's resolutions and juice cleanses and all
Yeah.
this stuff, is because you have to be willing to design our lives around creating the opportunity for healing. um,
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, I totally agree.
and I know you do a lot with kind of helping busy women
Hmm.
figure out this best way to do life where they're not so stressed. So what tips do you
Right.
have around that?
Yeah. So it's incorporating, systems and processes into your lifestyle that it's interesting because it's almost like an oxymoron, but for, like having busy women, like find time to schedule downtime, like you
Yeah.
schedule in
Schedule it.
block time on your calendar to do nothing, and it's so important that I'm so guilty of this myself, and this is something that I'm always working on, is like this, fast-paced life, overscheduled, overbooked. And I've really worked hard to create boundaries, and I work with my clients on this all the time around, allowing that time for unscheduled, downtime, whether it's self-care, a planned self-care activity, something that is, purposeful for you, if it's just rest, if it's watching Netflix, if it's going out for a walk with your family, whatever it is that, that is going to recharge you in every way and help you, to find that joy and find that peace and find that just
Yeah.
freedom to not be, have your day controlled by a schedule, or, just to have that opportunity to do whatever you're called to do that day, and or that in that moment. And, I don't think we have that opportunity so much, as especially as busy, high performing professional women in the United States, where between family and business and, obligations, our calendars are jam packed, and, we don't have. So I think what I encourage you to do, and, what I work on with myself and my clients, is, like I said, really actually creating scheduled downtime and block it off in your calendar, and set hard boundaries around that. and,
Yeah.
consider that time that you are unavailable. And however, whatever way you choose to spend that time, whatever is going to revive you and really help to, give you the opportunity to do something that brings you joy and happiness, then that is your time. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing to help to manage stress, ongoing, and help to support us as we go through these busy days and weeks, is having a consistent stress management practice. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple, but being very consistent with that. So if it's even, a 10 or 15 meditation every morning, or a 20-minute yoga practice in the evening, or breath work at some point in the day, but really finding what you connect with to help to calm your mind and body and get you in that sort of centered, grounded state. And once you determine what that practice is, being very consistent around it. And again, setting those boundaries and making that commitment to yourself, because that's where the impact is. And that's where the transformation occurs, is in that consistency. It's really, you're going to get out of the practice what you put into it. And when you commit to it and you're consistent, it's so powerful. And, you see those results transfer over into your performance at work, how you interact with your spouse and your children and your family, and you being able to emotionally have that endurance to multitask and manage your day at work, and then go home and still have the emotional energy to have a meaningful conversation with your husband or spouse, and then be engaged with your kids in the evening and not be completely exhausted emotionally after a long day. So I think that really helps when you have that consistent practice to manage, long-term your performance.
Yeah. And we have to look at it as long-term, because I think so often we, see the short term, like, well, I just have to get through this. And when this happens, then I'll be able to flat. And like the reality is, if we're not intentional about creating it now, it's never going to happen.
Totally. Yeah.
So, just to share an example from my own life, because I'm always working on this too. I somehow inadvertently stopped really scheduling anything on Thursdays, and I didn't intentionally do this. My son's going to come interrupt.
I see. It's fine.
But, I got to the point where I realized he actually goes to a sitter on Tuesdays and Thursdays to give me a break from homeschool and all that. And usually I work Tuesday. And I was like, I have a whole day where I can do whatever I want. And normally I would push myself to do work or what. And now I'm really intentional about, having that day
time
be for me. And I the first day I really took that time, I was like, wow, I really needed that. And
so
even not have a whole day, not many of us are fortunate to have that, but especially right now. But can you find 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yep.
You can do it. And so that was the first thought. And the second one is we have to make this work for us. You can read all the things and try all the what so and so does and the 5 a.m. club and all this stuff, but you have to be realistic about what's going to work for you. And I love that you're from that same space of
definitely, because if it's not realistic for your lifestyle, then it's the application and the implementation is not going to happen. And that we see that all the time. We all get over ambitious and take on all these things, and then 2 weeks in we can't, we don't have time for it anymore. So it's about, I think what you said is really important about being very intentional about how you create that time and space for yourself, for your self-care, and how that can allow you to show up, not only for yourself, but for in every other area of your life too, but really making it something that is practical for you, that's realistic to follow through on, and even trying it and seeing where you can plug in, like you said, just small pockets of time that are truly you're very committed to giving that time back to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Give our time back.
Yeah.
It's just so true. We are constantly
so valuable
away. We got to bring it back, ladies. Bring it back.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And if anybody wants to connect with you further, where can they Where can they do that?
Yeah, so my Facebook group is called Find Energy, Rise Above Chronic Stress and Fatigue. And I would love come on over, join the group. I have lots of, great resources and trainings and things going on in there all the time. So we can probably share the link right
Yeah,
in
yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
perfect. And
Yep.
then you could find me there and on Instagram at the period revolution period health is where you can find me on Instagram. And yeah, that's where I hang out the most. So I would love to have anybody come on over and join the group and join the fun that we're having on social media.
Awesome. Love it. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for joining us and
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.